Hello and welcome to this webinar, which will be detailing changes in the process for addressing the misidentification of English learners. My name is Aaron Graves, a Title III program consultant here at KDE, and with me is Wendy Newton.
Hi, I'm Wendy Newton. I work for the Office of Continuous Improvement and Support, and today we will start off by providing some background on identifying English learners. And as you know, districts are obligated to identify English learner or EL students who need language assistance services within 30 days of the student's enrollment by using the established entrance and exit procedures for ELs required by ESSA Section 113B2.
Today, we'll be discussing the misidentification of English learners. Misidentification refers to when a student is identified as an English learner, but they do not actually fit the definition of one. Let's first talk about the process to identify English learners. The first step in Kentucky's EL identification process is the administration of the Home Language Survey, or HLS, to every student upon initial enrollment to the district. If the answer to any of the questions on the HLS is a language other than English, that student is a potential EL, and their English language proficiency, or ELP, will be assessed using the appropriate WIDA screener. Keep in mind that responses on the HLS should not directly affect a student's EL status. Only the screener can do that. The HLS should only be administered upon initial entry to a Kentucky public school and should not be administered to a student who is transferring from one district to another. If an additional HLS is completed, it will have no effect on a previous EL classification. In rare instances, a student may be misidentified as an English learner. The U.S. Department of Education's non-regulatory guidance addendum addresses removing a student's EL designation if the student has been erroneously identified. In this guidance, it is stated that there may be a handful of reasons a student may be misidentified, such as a parent's inaccurate completion of the home language survey. When instances of misidentification arise, the LEA should be the one to determine how to proceed based on the individual circumstances. For example, if a student with disabilities was not provided appropriate accommodations, the next logical step for the LEA would be to retest the student with the appropriate accommodations and see if the results show that the EL designation can be removed. There is also a possibility that a misidentification occurs due to a parent misunderstanding the HLS. For example, if the parent indicates that languages other than English are spoken at home because there's an occasional use of a language other than English, even though English is the main language spoken at the home, and the student does not speak or understand any language other than English. In this case, the LEA will need to remove the EL designation. Once again, these instances are rare, and caution must be taken when determining whether the LEA should remove an EL designation before the student scores above a composite score of 4.5 or higher on the access test. A designation must never be removed based on parent request alone. Based on the guidance from USAID, KDE will no longer make the final determination about whether an individual student has been misidentified. Districts will now be responsible for making that determination. KDE will, however, continue to answer questions about specific cases and provide guidance when needed. KDE does have some recommendations for districts to follow as they determine whether a student has been misidentified. First, if a student suspects that an HLS was completed erroneously, they should reach out to the family to verify accuracy. If a parent believes their child was misidentified, the parent should submit a written request that includes a brief explanation of their reason for wanting to change the student's designation. This alone cannot change the designation, so districts should consult with multiple sources, such as teachers involved with providing the student instruction, to help with the determination of the student's EL status. Assessment scores will need to be taken into consideration as well. KDE also recommends that the district assembles a team to make the final determination regarding the misidentification of students while considering all evidence to determine if it supports removing a student's EL designation.
If the district determines a student has been misidentified as EL, Infinite Campus must be updated to reflect the student is no longer EL because of the misidentification. Revisions in IC should be made before rosters open in the Student Data Review and Roster application, known as SDRR, so that the student will not appear on the roster. If the district does not update IC to reflect the student is not EL prior to rosters opening, the student will be included on the roster and the district will have to resolve the discrepancy during the data review in the fall. Within Infinite Campus, the following items need to be updated in the student record. I'm going to share my screen so that we can look at Infinite Campus together. The first item that must be done is the student's program status on the EL tab, which is located under Student Information, Program Participation, and English Learners. The program status must be updated to not EL. In the comments field, enter in the misidentification approval, while the student was misidentified, and the approval date in the comments section, and save the record. You will also want to end date any EL services. And EL accommodations must also be end dated. And I would just end date that as the date, again, that the misidentification was approved. The last item that must be done in Infinite Campus is because the home primary language was actually supposed to be English, then that student's home primary language needs to be updated via Census, People, and the Demographics tab. So under home primary language, this should be updated to English. You can always reference the English Learner Data Standards for additional guidance. Also, be sure to retain pertinent documentation related to the decision in the student's records, including parent, guardian, letter of request. The documentation gathered by the team to support the misidentification should also be part of the student's record in case your district is selected for monitoring at a later date. One last step, notification to KDE. Once the district has approved a misidentification and revised the student record in IC as directed in the previous section, KDE must be notified through a brief survey. Completion of the English Learner EL misidentified survey is required to ensure the student's EL record is flagged in the Access Assessment database, indicating the student will no longer be participating in the testing. Once the survey is complete, the user will receive a prompt in the survey completion window indicating successful completion. The survey will ask for the district name, which can be selected from a drop list, the date of approval, so the date that the record was approved for misidentification, and the student state student identifier, or SSID. Please only enter in the student's 10-digit state student identifier. Do not send any other personally identifiable information for the student. Last, please enter in the district contact email address. So someone that KDE can contact regarding this record if there are any questions regarding the misidentification.
While districts have the responsibility to address misidentification, they also have the responsibility to prevent misidentification. An important step for prevention is to ensure that parents and guardians understand the purpose of the HLS. KDE's HLS template and the online Infinite Campus registration tool have clarifying language to explain that the HLS is only to determine if students may qualify for additional services, and the next steps if a language other than English is listed. KDE's home language survey will be required for all districts beginning with the 2022-23 school year. You can find KDE's HLS on the English Learners webpage. Failing to take preventative measures may lead to an increased risk for EL program monitoring. Districts that have a high rate of misidentification compared to their number of EL students, districts that approve misidentification for students who have been in the EL program for several years, and districts that approve misidentification for students who have not yet attained the minimum access score are all indicators that will be taken into account when KDE conducts risk assessment.
Thank you for taking the time to familiarize yourself with the changes of the process for identifying the misidentification of English learners. The official guidance document for this process will be sent to the district coordinators and posted to KDE's English Learners website. Within that document, you will find our contact information. We are always available for questions or assistance. Thank you.